Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to walk you through a presentation on economic growth to the world, and I'm going to kind of highlight key aspects that's driving some of the factors that are influence decisions made by various countries as part of developing their economic and taxation policies, as well as supporting growth into their various countries. Now, my presentation is just one opinion on worldwide economic growth, but you're more than apt to go out to look at any banking site to kind of get a perspective of what's going on in the world, and I encourage you to do that as a way to get a view of what's going on and not just trust what's in the general media, to kind of do your own research. This is a little bit of bio about me. It just kind of gives you a little bit of idea that I come from academia, industry, as well as financial solutions. Now, my agenda will be a look at global economic growth, a look at commodity prices, currency rates, trade and investments, and key growth. Now, this chart here shows you a couple things here. If we look at the left-hand side of this chart, you're seeing countries where the Bank of Nova Scotia is basically projecting economic growth. So overall, the worldwide economic growth for this year is about 3.2% and 3.5% in 2017. That's pretty slow growth compared to where we were maybe in the 90s. But what's significant here is you got to look at countries. So you're looking at countries like Canada, and if you go down further to other countries, you're not seeing significant growth in Europe as well as in North America. The key drivers in North America will likely be Mexico and the US. Now, people are saying, what's wrong with Canada? Well, a lot of it's been driven by basically the factors that we're a resource-based economy here in terms of oil and natural resources, and the commodity prices have hit a turmoil there. But it's interesting because if you move down further down, Australia is actually doing a bit better. But some of that has to do with the fact is that they've got some projects that they kicked off, like liquid natural gas projects that they're benefiting from in that area. Where they might see pressure in mining, they're able to pick up some of the slack in other sectors because they've made some huge investments in those areas. But if you look at the other growth countries, you're seeing Indonesia, you're seeing India and China, Turkey, as well as the big growth areas. Africa's not listed here, but it's a growth area. But now if you move over the right-hand side of the presentation, in slow growth countries there's a demographic shift that's come into play, which is an aging population that you're seeing there, along with government policies, whether that's climate change, environmental assessments, they're slowing how projects get off the ground. High taxation, well, that more directly relates to Europe. Canada's got a pretty competitive taxation system. The U.S. has to revisit theirs. There's considerable issues with corporate tax loopholes and all that have to be revisited. In high growth countries now, you're looking at modernization of infrastructure, and that's transit, bridges, and roads. You're also looking at new power generation, which is clean energy, liquid natural gas, and market reforms, like in India is happening, where they're looking for more foreign direct investment. I brought up commodity index to kind of show you that overall the oil sector is down, but one of the things to bear in mind, you're seeing restrictions lifted in Iran, so you're going to see more foreign direct investment in Iran as part of modernization there. The metal sector in its own right is down, but you're going to see still a big push in the rare metals, vanadium, lithium area due to demand in clean technology. I put forestry because housing starts are up in the U.S. That's driving forestry. Agriculture goes hit and miss. Certain areas of the world have seen strong banner crops, where other areas have seen issues. But going forward, there's going to be issues with many countries and how they utilize their land, as well along with issues with water usage. I just put currency rates just to show you. The biggest pressure point here is the government policies to support the yuan, what they're going to do in terms of backing it. That's something to watch. Weak commodity prices will influence areas where Canada and Australia are involved because of the currencies tied to them, and we've seen a rise in the US dollar. Now let's look at trade and foreign aid. Africa is going through huge growth and development, and that's what you're seeing here in terms of the growth markets. India is opening up with a lot of reforms to bring in foreign direct investments, a key area to watch. And the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is now being ratified by the various governments, is going to come into play gradually over the next few years. What's the keys to global economic growth? Well, we're going to see a rising middle class in growth areas like Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, India. That's going to drive a lot of this consumer spending in those areas, which means demand for products. OECD is bringing in, push forward some transfer pricing issues, and this is going to be how globalization works for a lot of companies. That's going to come into play. Then you're going to have government policies, whether they're supporting innovation whether they're supporting expansion of exports, or whether they're supporting environmental controls are going to come into play. These are all areas to watch as you move forward in terms of looking at the overall economic growth. The key aspect here is the government can't just throw money into a stimulate the economy. There has to be demand worldwide, and any sort of policy demand where a government gets involved in intervention in the economy has to be tapered with the right policies to make sure you got a balanced approach that supports exports but also supports what's required for within a country. And that's something that you need to bear in mind as you're watching forward, as you're watching the trends and you're looking making decisions, whether it's a business expansion or looking at sort of investments in terms of the outlook. This presentation was done to give you a quick overview, to not just take what people say at face value, that government policies within a country are dragging down economic growth, which is not necessarily true because most countries rely on exports. So you need to kind of think of that in the grand scheme of things. Thank you.